Malachi Starks, Nick Emenwari. We keep hearing so much about the safety position in this upcoming NFL draft, but you can understand why. Because with the Baltimore Ravens at safety right now, obviously they got super duper Kyle. He ain't going nowhere, whether it's by fifth-year option, whether it's by long-term contract extension, or ends up being both. Kyle Hamilton will continue to be a Baltimore Raven. But then opposite him, you currently got Ardarius Washington. And Ardarius Washington is in a tricky spot with the Baltimore Ravens as safety because he's essentially signed to sort of a one-year deal. There's no real long-term commitment right now with Ardarius Washington, though, because if a team signs him to an offer sheet and he likes that offer sheet and he signs that offer sheet, then the Baltimore Ravens have the opportunity to match whatever that deal is that the team signs him to. But if they don't, then Ardarius Washington goes bye-bye, and Ravens, they don't even get a draft pick in exchange for him. So we'll know if a team does that by April 18th because that's the deadline that they have to sign him to that. So it's like a week before the draft. But as safety, what are the Baltimore Ravens going to do? Well, they have a lot of different options, but there's a couple of options that we just really haven't been talking too much about that are actually currently on the roster. And we're getting ready to go over that right now. Team, keep it clean. Before we do, make sure you subscribe to the channel, turn the notifications on, and leave a like on the video because it helps out a ton. And I want you to stay up to date with everything going down with our Baltimore Ravens, man. I was looking in the comment section yesterday, and somebody was like, oh, I could tell Ingraven cuts his own hair. And yeah, we do. When it's low like this, it's hard to get the lineup right. But hey, when my hair gets a little long, you know that lineup be looking crispy, so I don't want to hear nothing about it. But either way, I love y'all, man. Team Keep It Clean. Y'all are the best, and y'all are very honest as well, and I appreciate that honesty. I love you. Now, shout out to my guy Jarvo because he brought this up in actually one of his questions that we sent, and we're going to go over this first part. Now, he said, why don't we talk about Beau, Brade, and Sanoussi, Kane enough? And yeah, there hasn't been much talk about them at all. When you think about the Baltimore Ravens safety, when I think about the Baltimore Ravens safety, when I bring them up, the only ones that I bring up is Super Duper Kyle and AW29, and that's it. I don't even mention Beau, Brade, or Sanoussi, Kane, so my apologies for that. But could that be a possible answer at the safety position? Now, obviously, if Starks or Emenwari is on the board when the Baltimore Ravens pick, then, I mean, that could get a little tricky right there. But I actually think the Baltimore Ravens, with that first-round draft pick, I think they're going to go in another direction. But we'll talk about that another day. But what about those two options? Well, specifically, Beau, Brade. Reason I say that, and I know initially you may hear that and be like, Beau, Brade, Sanoussi, why? How could those guys get an opportunity? You really think the Ravens would go with one of those guys to be a semi-starter with Kyle Hamilton and Ardarius Washington? And great, what you talk? But where did Ardarius Washington come from? Where was Ardarius Washington drafted? What round was he drafted in? Tell me that. He wasn't. And that's not a shot at Ardarius Washington at all, because Ardarius Washington is a baller. But with somebody like a Beau, Brade, who in that last game of the preseason against the Packers, Eric DeCosta went down to him and told it like, hey, Beau, Brade, call your family, call your people, and let them know that you made the roster. Let them know that you made the team. He don't just be doing that for anybody now. They really don't. So could he have a similar story to Ardarius Washington, where he came in as an undrafted rookie free agent, ain't really get many opportunities his first year, but then as time went along, he got more and more opportunities. He grew with the team, and then he ended up evolving into an amazing safety? Anything is possible. So we can't necessarily rule that out. I know nobody has been talking about it like at all, but it is a real possibility, especially when you've almost been handpicked by the team's general manager. Obviously, once we get to the draft, that'll answer a whole lot of questions that we still have, but anything's possible. And then you look at Sanoussi Kane. That's another one. Now, he was actually drafted by the Baltimore Ravens last year, late in the draft. And that boy, like, he is a hitter, man. He's dangerous, man. He is dangerous because he reminds me sort of like a Bernard Pollard, a Cam Chancellor. What them safeties just they ain't afraid to wreck nothing. They don't care who it is. They don't care how fast you are, how big you are. They go and head up every time, man. And I love that about Sanoussi Kane. In fact, he whacked somebody so hard last year that he ended up injuring himself. But then he came back a little bit later, so it's all good. But could one or both of those guys end up being an answer to the question that the Baltimore Ravens have at the safety position? Don't rule it out. So now we reach my favorite part of these videos where we get to feature your questions. And you know what? Let's get straight into it. The first questions came from my guy Jarvo, because that boy, yeah. When Jarvo gets a question, and I tell y'all to do the same thing, but when Jarvo gets a question, he'll send it. It don't matter what time it is. It don't matter, he will send it. And then if Jarvo gets another question, he will send it. So y'all take notes from Jarvo, because that's what he does. Anyway, he said, why don't we talk about Brade or Sanoussi Kane enough? Well, that's what we talked about at the top of the video. He said, a sleeper O-line player we do have that also went undrafted is Corey Bullock, who in my opinion played very well during the preseason. That's interesting. I forget about him. But yeah, you never know, man, where the Baltimore Ravens could get upgrades at the guard position. Like, they got a lot of options there too. Similar to the safety position, but the guard position, I feel like that's a bit easier to get a plug-and-play player at guard than it is safety. That's just my opinion. Let me know if y'all agree or disagree. He also said, Jose and Brade said, we don't value the O-line because we have Lamar Jackson as our quarterback and he can just run around and make plays. Yeah, I do feel like the Baltimore Ravens over the years, they have not valued the offensive line enough. And we've talked about this for a long time as well, because of Lamar Jackson. Lamar Jackson makes life easier for offensive linemen. And a lot of times Lamar Jackson can make offensive linemen a little bit overrated too. Now, offensive linemen, it's weird to say that, because offensive linemen are not overrated, obviously. You want the best offensive line you can possibly get. But it has felt at times that the Ravens have been like sort of almost not neglected offensive line, but not put as much emphasis on it as they should have, because of Lamar Jackson. Because, hey, offensive lineman misses on a block, whiffs a block. Oh, Lamar just make a miss. Lamar just run away from that guy. And that's something that happens really around the NFL a lot. If you got a mobile quarterback, and Lamar just ain't no mobile quarterback, that boy, he got it, man. He got it. So if you got a quarterback like that, and I mean, ain't really no quarterbacks like Lamar, but if you got a quarterback like a Lamar Jackson, then the offensive line, if they do their thing, great. But if they don't, then it's still great, because, Lamar can make some crazy stuff happen. He also said, another option at safety in the draft is Xavier Watts, who is known to be a ball hawk, which is something we haven't had at safety in a long time. Yeah, we haven't. We signed Earl Thomas. You know how that turned out. Marcus Williams, he was a ball hawk. But again, remember his first year? Oh yeah, he still had the ball hawking ability, but then he got hurt. Second year, he was doing this, then he got hurt. Then his third year, I don't know what happened with him. Again, craziest thing, man. Anyway, so we have had a ball hawk. We just had a ball hawk the last 3 years. Just couldn't stay healthy. And then the third year, Anyway, he said Watts is 6 foot and he's 203. He ran a 4.49. He only played 2 years at safety, but earned All-American and recorded 13 interceptions in those 2 years. See, that's what I like to hear. I like to hear when there's a prospect that you're thinking about for the Baltimore Ravens, especially at certain positions, and they were productive. Anyway, he said, as a senior this past season, he recorded 6 interceptions, including his first pick six, and he recorded career highs with 82 total tackles, including 4 for a loss and 10 pass breakups. Oh, my goodness. He said, not to mention, he came out of Notre Dame, and him and Super Duper Kyle played together with, okay. I like that. He said, which is a plus to having the Ravens backfield. A pass rusher, we can look. See, I like my guy been doing his research. I love it. I haven't had the opportunity or the time to do my research yet, but I love it, and I appreciate this. Thank you, Jarvo. He said a pass rusher we can look at is James Pierce Jr. out of Tennessee. Now, I've been hearing about him, but he said he's 6'5", 243, and ran a 4.47. Oh, that's crazy. So, that's freaky right there. 6'5" and 243 and ran a 4.47. Oh, that's kind of scary. He said, you might get some questions about Mike Green, who I would love, but he has some off-the-field issues that the Ravens might not approve of, but he is a monster with speed and power at the edge position. Yeah, I have heard that he got some off-the-field issues, but that hasn't stopped the Ravens before with different players. Anyway, he also said, if we were to make a big splash trade outside of Mark Andrews, who are some other valuable trade pieces you see us moving away from? Oh boy, that is a tough question, because I don't really see anybody. Obviously, I would hate it. I would hate it And I'll be very upset too. But Isaiah Likely, like just the tight end room as a whole, is a possibility because they're all free agents after this year, and Ravens ain't gonna be able to keep everybody. So could they move on from? If they don't move on from more, could they move on from one of the other two? That's something. But other than that, I really don't see anybody. Like they don't have anybody like of significance that they would trade away. And I'm trading Lamar, Derrick Henry, Roquan Smith, Kyle Hamilton, Tyler Linderbaum. No. Justice Hill, no. No. So the Rashad Bateman, Zay Flowers, you're not getting rid of them. You just brought in DeAndre. So they don't. I feel like they don't have any like big splash crazy trades that they could make for anybody else. And he said, what are your thoughts on the quote from Malik Harrison? And he said, in practice, you can't do too much because you don't want to mess with the church money. Now, being on the other side with him joining the Steelers, I can really just unleash and dominate how I know I can do. Yeah, with that, I mean, okay, let's see. Like you seen Patrick Queen. Now, Patrick Queen, he did, what did he get, an interception? He got a fumble recovery. That's what it was. I think when Derrick Henry fumbled, Patrick Queen recovered it. But, Malik Harrison, like, go do your thing with Pittsburgh. It is what it is. Make sure whatever you say that you back it up on Sundays or Thursdays or Saturday, whenever we end up playing the Steelers again. He said, what are your thoughts on these rule changes? He said the NFL is considering adding replay assistance for if a flag is thrown on the following penalties: a hit to the QB's defenseless player's head or neck area. Okay, I mean, as long as they can get it right. That's it. As long as they can get it right. The NFL, they get a lot of stuff wrong. But anyway, he said face mask, horse collar tackle, tripping or running into the kicker. So they would only be able to pick up the flag, or I guess if the rules change. I mean, if the penalty is worth changing. So I wouldn't be mad at that. I wouldn't be mad at that as long as they use it in a positive way and use it effectively. Okay, cool. He also said, lunch break, had a great talk, and I just had to bring up these questions to you. He said, if Lamar Jackson had not re-signed with us, do you think EDC and John would have been let go? It's a high chance. It would all just depend on what quarterback they brought in, who they brought in. I think that they would be possibly given maybe a shorter leash, maybe. But the Ravens are a very family, tight-knit organization. So it all just depends. But it would all depend on how they performed with whoever their quarterback ended up being if Lamar Jackson had not come back to the Ravens. He also said, we have seen teams like the Rams, Lions, Eagles, 49ers, and other GMs build around their quarterback. And if Lamar Jackson were on those teams, he'd have a Super Bowl. My question is, why can't EDC do the same? He has done the same. The last 2 years, the Baltimore Ravens have had teams good enough to win, not only make the Super Bowl, but win the Super Bowl. The last 2 years, they certainly have. And I told y'all that in 2023, that's when EDC, he gained my trust. In 2019, when he became the GM for the Ravens, he didn't have it yet. I'm like, I ain't had nothing against EDC. I'm like, all right, let's see. 2020, I was okay, cool, but let's still see. 2021 was nice. He built a nice roster but literally everybody got hurt. Then 2022 happened, but then 2023, that's when he really I said, oh, you got it. Okay, I got you. Then last year, 2024, built another great roster too. But Ravens just didn't finish the job. They didn't finish. So for the past 2 years, he has built teams good enough to win the Super Bowl. Could he have done better in some areas and whatnot? Yeah, of course. He can always do better. But the teams have certainly been good enough to win. He also said, can you name 4 starters or solid players that EDC drafted outside of the second round within the last 4 years? Oh, man, I would have to pull up the draft. But off the top of my head, he said outside of the second round, Isaiah Likely. He said within the last 4 years, Justice Hill. Because, Justice Hill was, 2019, I think? What year was Justice Hill drafted? I think it was 2019. It's Tylan Wallace. Who else? This just off the top of my head, so I'm struggling to think of the Baltimore Ravens and their recent later draft picks. That's only the 3 that I could think of off the top of my head. I would really have to sit down and look at who we done drafted over the past 4 years. And he said, do you think Ozzie would have built a better roster around Lamar and actually built an offensive line and defensive line? Better roster around Lamar? Wide receiver, no. Because, our history with Ozzie as GM at wide receiver. He just approached it a little bit differently. But as far as offensive line, defensive line, maybe. Maybe, but Ozzie had never had a quarterback like Lamar Jackson. He didn't. None of the quarterbacks that we had previously were like a Lamar Jackson. So it's one of those things where we don't know because we don't really have the track record for a quarterback like Lamar. And I mean, nobody really liked Lamar, but you get what I'm saying? We had Joe Flacco, we had Steve McNair, we had Kyle Bowler, we had just our quarterbacks before. They could move a little bit. They were a little mobile, but not, again, Lamar Jackson. he just different, man. He just a different breed. And again, there's nothing and nobody like him. Next question came from my guy Omar. He said, "What's up, Ingraven? What's up, Omar?" He said, "First time sending a question." Okay, appreciate you. He said, "I've been watching since the middle of the 2023-24 season. God bless your family and you, my brother." Hey, I appreciate that, Omar. Thank you. And thank you for watching. Thank you for tuning in. And thank you for being a part of this, man. He said, "I got a solution for our season, offense and defense. So first, we should trade up in the draft to get a DB or edge our 27 pick and Andrews for the Cardinals pick. Get a DB like Siobhan Revel or Malachi Starks. Get a free safety so we can put Kyle Hamilton more on a Swiss Army knife roll." Oh, so get back to that old super duper Kyle that made him super duper Kyle. So I ain't mad at that. And I guess as far as Malachi Starks, because I've seen a lot of talk about him. Some people think he might maybe be there at 27, but you saying like, look, make it a sure thing that you get Malachi Starks. Don't leave it up to chance. If he's dropping, just go get him. Go get him. Don't wait till 27. You saying move up and make it a sure thing. And then as far as the Kyle Hamilton, just allowing Kyle Hamilton to get back to doing everything, being a unicorn player like he had been before. And obviously last year he had a more reduced role, a more strict role, to where they didn't have him everywhere. They did a little bit, but not nearly as much as they had in years before. So I get you. I get you with that, because we want Kyle Hamilton to be at his best. And look, Kyle Hamilton, you put him anywhere, he'll be at his best. But you want him to be loose, you want him to be free, and you want him to just be a straight up weapon. I remember Kyle Hamilton, he was a cornerback, he was a safety, he was a linebacker, he was a pass rusher, he was everything. And that man, whew, that man is real deal, man. Like, Kyle, I love watching Kyle Hamilton play. I love talking about Kyle Hamilton because he just like that, man. He one of them guys, he just like that, man. And you see that, man. He's amazing. He's amazing. I can't wait till Ravens, they lock him up, man. They sign him to that deal, because he has already earned it. He will continue to earn it. And he has just continued to get better and better and better and better and better every single snap, every single game. That man is the real deal. Anyway, he said, or could we then trade away in some picks for Trayvon Walker, from the Jaguars? He said, what you think about this? They could do that. They could. I feel like that would be not addition by subtraction, because with Oway, he's in contract year. And you got to remember how Ravens, they passed, like, look what he did not in contract year. He definitely improved. We coming up. But and he's getting better now. Ravens, their pass rush I still feel like it needs some work. And I know what Calvin Oy said. I know what he said. But as far as Odafe Oway, with him being in a contract, I feel like Ravens, they got to take advantage of that, because he wants to get paid. I mean, who wouldn't want to get paid? But he's trying to make some money. He got a big opportunity, like literally right in front of his face. Like Odafe Oway, you go out there and you kill it. You go, and I'm sure he's working on his craft regardless whether it's contract year or not. But now it's contract year, so whether you get paid from the Ravens, you get paid from somebody else, you are going to get paid. You got all that money sitting in front of your face. Oh yeah, I'm sure he's gonna step it up a notch. So I'm sure there will be another way that the Baltimore Ravens could acquire Trayvon Walker from the Jaguars if he is still being shopped, and if they still even really wanted him. Because I would rather add to the pass rush instead of taking away from it.